welcome everyone to, now it's day 4 of our Suburban Action Week. So thanks for joining us. I'm Maggie Sherwinski, an advocacy manager from the Active Transportation Alliance, and my colleague W. Robert Schultz III is also here, an advocacy manager, and he'll be assisting with the Q&A. So if anyone has any questions during the session, please add them to the chat, and we'll get to those after the presentation. But let me introduce you to our speaker today, Barbara Klipp, the executive director of the Midwest Sustainability Group, who has had decades of experience working as an advocate, working for sustainability for Lake County and beyond, really. And yeah, I'm excited to have her here today. So Barbara, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Maggie. And welcome to everybody. My name is Barbara Klipp. I'm technically, my title is Executive Director of Midwest Sustainability, but we're a small group. It's not like there's a big organization behind me. We've been lucky enough to work with Maggie and Active Transportation Alliance on several campaigns. So thanks for having us here today, Maggie. I've been asked in 20 minutes to talk about our organization, a little bit about how we start and what we work on. Our Route 53 campaign, which is sort of like phase 1 is over, but we're still working on that. And then, some tips for some advocates out there to empower you as well. So I'm going to jump right in, try to get through that in 20 minutes. So this is how we started. In 2008, I live in an environmental community called Prairie Crossing in Grays Lake. And actually, I live in the transit-oriented development part of the neighborhood, so that's kind of interesting. But anyway, we live also near a landfill, and the landfill was having really bad problems. So we formed a community group to get together to figure out what was going on. And while we were doing our due diligence on that project to figure out what we could do to engage to fix the horrible problem we were having there, we discovered that the Lake County, well, Solid Waste Agency really, and the county together, had a plan to put incinerator proposals in the county plan. The 5-year solid waste plan. So we jumped in. We pretty quickly figured out it probably wasn't going to happen in our town, but we decided to fight it anyway. So we started a campaign, and we were successful. We not only stopped that, but we convinced the county board to work on more waste diversion in the county and to kind of double down on that. And I'm really proud to say we've stayed engaged with the county and with the every 5-year solid waste plan update since then. And we now lead the state of Illinois in waste diversion in Lake County. So we're really proud of the work we've done together with our elected officials and with the Solid Waste Agency of Lake County on that. So once we finished that, we were kind of empowered. It's very empowering. If you all haven't had a big victory yet, it is very empowering. And you realize that you have the ability to create positive change. So we decided to keep doing this work, and we wanted to broaden our goal. So we picked the name Incinerator Free Lake County on the fly. So we decided to pick a name that had a more broad implication to it. So we changed our name to Midwest Sustainability Group, and we formed a nonprofit. We also monitor Countryside Landfill, and we work together with the US EPA on managing that. This is our colleague Dick Costany, who also worked on air monitors for the landfill. I think I have the wrong PowerPoint pulled up here. Anyway, so the Route 53 project. Our organization has 3 campaigns that we work on. One is Advocacy 101. The second one is Transportation, Sustainable Transportation. And the third one is we work on zero waste, which is like recycling, composting, waste diversion, all that kind of stuff. We do also work on things like clean air, clean water, open space protection as they overlap, or even sustainable community planning as they overlap with the transportation issues. The Route 53 campaign started for us back in 2015. The actual project started with a Blue Ribbon Advisory Commission in 2012. This is, for those of you who don't know, it's a 50-year-old project. Well, actually, it's almost 60 years now. It started in 1962 as a highway corridor, and it came back to our count. We believe it was defeated at least 4 times in those 60 years by grassroots organizations. So if you can imagine, it goes up from a T, from the bottom of or the top of where Route 53 ends, I guess you'd think of it that way, in Long Grove, and then it goes straight up north to the Grays Lake area, and then it branches off and it splits like a T. And so half of it goes to, would connect to the I-94 tollway to the east, and the other half would connect up and connect through other corridors all the way up to the Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge. We decided to fight it for many reasons, and I had this all in the PowerPoint, so I'm going to wing it. Well, first of all, Lake County, this has become a de facto open space corridor over the 60 years that this property has been being acquired by the state and protected. We have more threatened and endangered species in Lake County than any other county in the state of Illinois. And we've learned that threatened and endangered species are directly proportional to how much open space you have protected, which is kind of an interesting fact. So we believe that this huge open space corridor that's been a de facto open space corridor is a large reason why we have all these threatened and endangered species. We have a lot of what they call aided or very high quality wetlands in this area. We know in terms of climate change that these kind of high quality wetlands are more valuable in terms of climate protection than tropical rainforests, which is kind of interesting too, to me anyway. So for a lot of reasons, to protect clean water in the area, to protect flooding in the area, and because this was a phenomenally bad 1950s transportation plan, well, 1960s technically, but you know, the old way of doing things was to build a massive highway, induce massive urban sprawl, and call that a transportation and economic development plan. Of course, I think everybody here knows we know better than that now. We know about smart growth and smart community planning, and so this was a bad idea on its face. It was going to induce massive urban sprawl and increase the traffic in the county. If you read into the details of these reports, it was going to increase our traffic, not decrease it. So they were kind of lying to people. Well, no, they weren't kind of. They were lying to people and saying it was going to reduce traffic in the whole county and it was going to be this magic silver bullet. So we decided, and one of the things I wanted to talk about was setting goals today. And when we set our goals on this campaign, and we did a strategic plan, which I encourage everyone to do, because if you don't have goals, you don't really get to how you should be acting. So random tactics are usually not going to get you a win. You have to think strategically. So when we sat down and we made our goals in this campaign, we realized not only do we want to protect the corridor, but why do we want to protect it? And when we drilled down, we realized that stopping the highway was only step one. Step two is we want to protect it, because that was our ultimate goal. And then three is we want to have a better transportation plan to relieve congestion, because we really do have congestion in the county. And so we have a three-part campaign. Part one of stopping the project was successful back in 2019. That part was done for now. And we are now in the phase of working on what are we going to do with this land and how are we going to protect it. And I'll talk about our vision in a minute. So I was asked to talk a little bit about, so that was the why of us getting involved in the project, about what we did to stop it. So we did a lot of research. There had only ever been one major highway proposal ever defeated in the United States, actually, interestingly enough, and that was in Illinois. It was called the Prairie Parkway, or it was kind of nicknamed the Hastert Highway because it was in Denny Hastert's district. And we called them and we reached out to them about things that they had done. We formed our own strategic plan with our own goals. We engaged with the county board. I mean, I'm just going to walk you through some of the things that we did here. We engaged with, at the time, Senator Link and Representative Rita Mayfield, who were the ex officio members of this Blue Ribbon Advisory Council that had supported this plan. And Senator Link, we had heard that the tollway, once they started taking up the project, had gotten away from the environmental proposals in this Blue Ribbon Advisory Council plan. And Senator Link gave us his word that if they got away from those environmental proposals, he would withdraw his support from the project and he would write a letter. So when they started moving away from the proposals, we reached back out to him and he kept his word. He wrote a letter and he withdrew his support. So that was the first, you could see that's December 17th, 2015. So that was 4 years before we stopped the project, but that was the beginning of us being able to flip, if you will, some of the support that the project had. On the right-hand side, you can see the corridor in the red circle there. It's very easy to see even without the red circle. And you'll see in the blue circle, there's a school right there, Mechanics Grove Elementary School. And those are the playgrounds from the school. That would be right up against a tollway. In a lot of states, it's against the law. You can't even have a school that close to a tollway. One of the questions that came up is, well, which was there first, the tollway corridor or the school? In that particular case, the tollway corridor was there first. But in the case of Mundelein High School, that it also goes right behind. Mundelein High School actually predated the tollway corridor by, I think, 6 or 8 months. It was also opened in 1962. So we spoke to school boards. Here we are, petition gathering at a library that's right on the corridor. On the right-hand side, you'll see we took out a half-page ad. At the time, we were trying to get Governor Rauner's attention because he was our top target. Your target is always the person who can give you what you want. Here we are. We had these obnoxious yellow T-shirts because we wanted to be noticeable, and I think you can agree they were noticeable. We were speaking at a tollway board hearing here. On the right-hand side, we took the folks that defeated the Prairie Parkway. They had every year an open space celebration. So they celebrated the open space that was still there. And so we took up those open space celebrations. On the left hand, the gentleman standing up on the left there was the Sierra Club National Board president at the time. He was he came to our open space celebration. Here on the left, Lake County Board Chairman at the time, Aaron Lawler, withdrew his support for the project. That was a huge win for us. And he had a press conference in the community directly adjacent to what would be the 120 bypass corridor. And then we were at a community meeting on the right-hand side there. So there was a lot of work that went into this over a 4-year period. And in 2019, we won, at least that phase of the protection. And when I say we, it's not just my organization. We worked, we might say we were the lead organization working on it, but we worked together with Sierra Club, we worked with Open Lands, Friends of Indian Creek Wetlands. There were a lot of groups involved. We still meet regularly. We don't really have a name for the group. I think we call ourselves the Green Corridor Group or something like that, but we're still working together to see that we protect the land. We were the top story in Lake County in the Daily Herald that year and got some great news coverage. The next slide, we were asked, what do we think makes us successful? And this might sound like bragging a little bit, but I think it's true. We are relentless and persistent, and we stick with things. And elected officials know that. They know if they take us on, we're not going to give up. We have built relationships with key decision makers over the years, and I cannot stress that enough, how important that is to engage, even with someone you think is your opponent, to engage with them. We are fair with them, we're honest with them. If they tell us something off the record, we've never betrayed them. I think you have to also build trust also with your decision makers. We are strategic. I mentioned that. I think that's so important. Fearless. When I say fearless, when we took this project on, everyone said, you're nuts. If you think you can beat the Illinois Tollway and all the land developers, but we believe we could, and we were willing to try, even, like we were going to leave it all in the field, whether we won or not. Forward thinking, we do our homework, and we try to offer our elected officials a better alternative. And so those kind of go together. But elected officials, I think it helps to put yourself in their shoes. So whether it's in the case of all the waste coming into the county at the time, or transportation and congestion problems that they really have to deal with and they're really responsible for. So we always try to offer them a positive alternative, a better alternative to their problem. So I covered our campaigns. Our current goals on transportation are, like I said, to promote a better and more sustainable transportation plan in the county. We were successful at getting the county board. I think Active Transportation Alliance helped us with petitioning the county board to put in their strategic plan to do a new transportation study to develop a multimodal transportation plan that includes active transportation and also includes public transit plan, which although DuPage County had one, I think it was 17 years ago, Lake County doesn't have a public transit plan. So we're working together with them to integrate all of their modes of transportation. To protect the corridor, so our vision for the corridor I'll get into in a minute, but long story short, and I'll show you a map that I just hope this is in the PowerPoint and not in the wrong one. But Open Lands developed a vision, and we all support it in our corridor council, if you want to call us that. And that is to connect. So at the southern end of this proposed corridor are a lot of great aided wetlands and really valuable wetlands. And it goes up through to the east, up through the Liberty Prairie Reserve, which is a lot of protected area we have in Lake County. And then to the west, it connects, and it would go technically straight through the state protected Volo Bog and literally up straight through the glacial cames and Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge. So our vision is to protect as much as possible of the important parcels along this corridor. cores and corridors, I think Open Lands likes to say. And we'd like to have it be, particularly in the southern end or in the 120 bypass area where there already is state-owned land, to have a non-motorized corridor that can be a driver for economic development and tourism, with a nice trail. We already have an intact corridor, so it'd be a great place for a non-motorized trail. And we think it could attract complementary development, like cafes along the way, and make this a really an outdoor recreational destination for the county. Well, it's actually 2 counties when we get up to the Hackmatack area. So that's our vision there. We also are supporting sustainable design principles in our county and in our towns. And one of the things we did with zero waste is we got the county the county has no authority in the state of Illinois because of home rule and all that, to mandate recycling, for example. So what we did in our solid waste plan update is we did all these model ordinances that towns could do, and then we shopped them to the towns, and the towns adopted them, because a lot of towns don't have the manpower or the money or the time to develop their own really great and forward-thinking plans. So they adopted our zero waste plans a lot, in total or in part. So we think we could do something similar with sustainable community planning, with active transportation. I know Active Transportation Alliance already has a lot of model ordinances that we already have developed. And so our goal is to see our county help be a facilitator to get a lot of the towns in Lake County to adopt these sustainable complete streets and active transportation ordinances. And also on the Chicago River Trail project, we are supporting Active Transportation Alliance. I'll skip zero waste there. Advocacy 101 is our other campaign, or one of our other campaigns, and we actually teach advocacy skills because we've learned so much along the way. A lot of anti-incinerator groups around the country have reached out to us for help, and we realize that each grassroots campaign like this really starts from scratch. And so we wanted to be able to empower as many people as we could with the tools that they need, so they don't have to start from scratch. I mean, that's our goal. We have some upcoming, on February 27th, I think it is, we have I don't know if you want to call it a vlog, I guess, a video interview. Jackie Kendall, who wrote the book for organizers. She ran the Midwest Academy for Organizers for years. And so she's going to be interviewed, and that webinar is going to be about organizing, and the title is When Being Right Is Not Enough. So that's going to be a really great one. And then in March, Verena Owen, who started the largest environmental campaign in the world right here in Lake County, the Sierra Club's Beyond Coal campaign. I don't know if you know, it started here in Illinois. And she started by fighting coal plant permits locally. And of course, it grew into the largest environmental campaign in the world. So she's going to be talking, and we're going to be talking about setting, it was SMART goals. I guess now it's SMART-E, I'm told. So they've added inclusion and equity into SMART goals. So we're going to be talking about that in March. So if you want to know more about our advocacy trainings, our website, which is midwestsustainability.org, has a newsletter sign up. So if you sign up for our newsletters or follow us on our Facebook page, which is Midwest Sustainability, you can learn more about our trainings. I talked about our vision for the corridor already. Here's a map I thought might be helpful for you. So you can see on the southern end where it starts in Long Grove and where we connect, and you see the Liberty Prairie Reserve right on the right there. And then you see where it would eventually connect and go through the Volo State Bog and up through the glacial caves and Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge. So by protecting as much of this corridor as we can, that would be an amazing urban, I guess you'd think of it like a string of pearls of protected areas for our wildlife and for our residents. I'm going to skip that. Upcoming work. So we are working on several things. We have legislation, a House bill that has already been introduced, and a Senate bill that's going to be introduced next week to form a task force to decide what to do with the state-owned land in the corridor. Of course, our goal is to get as much protected as we can, and to let the communities in the less sensitive areas use the land for the betterment of the community. For example, Mundelein High School, because it's almost right on the corridor, they don't have enough playing fields for sports, and they would very much like to put some athletic fields in the corridor there. It's not a particularly sensitive area, so we're all for that. I mean, there have been talk about things like band shells, and obviously we'd like to keep development as out of the corridor as much as we can, but a community-owned amenity like that, that's certainly something I think that most of us are willing to consider, especially if it's complementary to a non-motorized and protected area. And we're also pushing for other things, like the grade separation of the train tracks at 120 and 83. That is a needed transportation improvement that will really help relieve congestion there and relieve the pressure to do the 120 bypass. So that's all I guess I have. I don't know if you guys have any questions. My tips for you all for advocacy, first of all, is to, there's that great, I think it was Arthur Ashe, the quote, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. So to create a vision of what you'd like to see, get together with a couple people, and don't be afraid to engage, and don't ever think you can't create positive change, because I know for a fact there is almost nothing that you can't do with a group of committed people. Sorry, that's my own timer, so I don't talk too long. Second of all, set SMART goals. Third of all, build relationships with people. And lastly, to be patient, because especially with active transportation, and it was the same with zero waste, and I'll just make the comparison. With zero waste, in the 1950s, people used to burn and bury their trash. We now know that there's resources in there to be protected and developed. And so there's a whole new way of thinking about things. And it took us at least 12 years to convince the key stakeholders and decision makers that there was a better way to do things. And they kind of believed us, but it was a long process of building relationships and education and constant education. And I would say the same is true with active transportation. I think generally speaking, no one doesn't like trails, but actually making them a priority and making them a reality, I think is a longer process. So don't ever give up. Be persistent and be patient. And my last little thing is be flexible, because sometimes things come at you and surprises come up of things you never saw coming. It has happened to all of us. And so you just have to be flexible, and like they say in the Marine Corps, improvise and overcome, and pivot and get to your victory. So that's all I have.
Great. Maggie, would you like me to take a couple of
Yeah,
that?
that'd be great, Robert. Thanks.
Okay. Um, Now, as a question that came up second first, uh, if you could share your email for your organization, Barb.
Yes, and the correct PowerPoint I had ready for today had it in there. Sorry. It's barbara@midwestsustainability.org.
Great, thank you. And then we had a couple questions here. One is referring to, I'm assuming this is Illinois State Resolution 53 Task Force. Has that been dropped?
Yes, and I can tell you, I have it in my notes from yesterday. I can tell you the House bill number, but the Senate bill, like I said, isn't going to get filed until next week. So I don't have that. Let's see. Okay, I don't have it off the top of my head, but we can send that out to people, because I know that the Senate sponsor is Senator Bush, and the House sponsor, the chief co-sponsor, is Representative Didich. And so I'll get you the bill number. It's a House joint resolution.
Okay. And next question is, does the group work with any local bike clubs in Lake County?
That's a good point. We have not connected with any of them. We'd love to. I would also like to reach out to some of the state biking groups. Yeah, my partner who works on these issues, Evan Craig, with me, he actually started in a local biking group, and that's why he decided he wanted to protect the Route 53 corridor, because he didn't want them, how did he put it, messing up his bike trails and his biking areas.
Thank you. Here's another question. Do you have quantifiable reduction numbers for the landfill diversion?
I have them, and if you go to the Solid Waste Agency of Lake County, SWALCO's website, they list the diversion numbers in their most recent, I think it was a year ago, our most recent solid waste plan update, the most recent numbers are in there. Yeah.
Um, oh, okay. No, that's not a question. I guess that's just some information. Any other questions out there? You can continue to put them in the chat.
Barbara, someone asked if you could unshare your screen so then we can see you in a, yeah, there we go. Thank you.
What are your plans for the future for the organization, say the next year to 18 months?
Well, in this year's strategic plan, we're working on several things. We have taken, like I said, our advocacy trainings online. So we used to do them in person, so we've had to adjust that a bit. A few of our events, like we started an environmental awards ceremony. We give out lifetime awards and awards to local volunteers and to elected officials doing a great job. And that got canceled last year, so I think that's kind of on indefinite hold. We're going to be working on the transportation issues, on this transportation plan for Lake County, and seeing what we can do there, because the county was just about to do it, and then of course no one has any money right now. And we're working on an economic development report of how much economic development we could bring in by protecting the corridor. So largely focused on that. And we'd like to branch out, like I said, into some sustainable community planning work as well.
Great. Mike was able to share with us that, and I think Maggie can affirm this, that the only statewide bike organization is Ride Illinois, one of our partners.
Yes, I would love to connect with Ride Illinois.
Oh yeah, we can definitely connect you.
Yes, yes. And I will say, we did not do this project. I mean, I think I went to one meeting, but we didn't have the bandwidth. But some local activists worked together with the College of Lake County, and they now have a bike sharing program that's coming to Grays Lake. So that's exciting.
Oh, great.
We're hoping that can be a model for other Lake County towns as well.
Yeah. Barbara, since there's not another question, I'm good for improvising. Since my days in high school, I've been an activist and, doing all sorts of different things. And I wondered, from your experience, um, in your organization's experience, how do you keep your membership engaged, and maybe how has that changed in the age of the internet?
That's a good question. We have a lot of great volunteers and members, and we have a newsletter. We try not to inundate people with stuff, but keeping something for our volunteers to do in the age where we can't get together or have grassroots meetings or engage, that's been a challenge for us. I think it's probably a challenge for everybody. So having people organized to write elected officials about our legislation, we might be doing things like that, but it's very difficult. So other than having these lunch and learn webinars and engaging with people that way, we're still struggling for ideas of ways to keep our volunteers engaged.
Thank you. One other question I have, with volunteer organizations and institutions and just about any human endeavor, um, financial resources are a key. And how does your group address that question?
Well, that's another good question. So we were receiving funding. We had municipal funding from some of the towns in the area, and of course that's gone away because of the pandemic. Everybody's kind of on a freeze right now. So we've been struggling, and our big fundraisers all got canceled. So we've tried to do some online fundraising. So that's been difficult. But we're reaching out more for grants right now, which is something we've had municipal grants, but we've really never reached out to foundations for grants. And we've definitely are a lean and scrappy organization operating on a shoestring, and I think we have a pretty good track record. So I think that's our next step. So if anybody on here knows anybody on any foundations, let me know.
All right, we got a question here. In the Henry County session earlier this week, organizers took key officials on the transit ride to focus on the lack of it. Interesting. One idea might be to sponsor a corridor bike ride to get the community involved.
I love that idea. We have done corridor hikes, and the elected officials sponsoring the legislation have asked us to do a tour this spring to take them on a junket, if you will, through the corridor, so they can actually see it firsthand. Instead of just hearing about it and seeing pictures and so on. And I had in the better PowerPoint, which I'll try to get to you guys so you can share out. I had some lovely pictures of the corridor. I think that's a great idea, and you know, I think the other thing is public transit. We did have a plan to take we were going to take members of the media and some elected officials on public transit rides and challenge them. And then, the pandemic happened. So that got put aside for now too, because the elected officials were reluctant to ride public transit right now, which says a lot, right? So that's going to be one of the biggest, I think you guys know that, I don't have to tell you. One of our biggest struggles is going to be how do we get public transit funded in this time, and how do we keep it safe for people to ride. For us, we're fighting for equity for public transit in Lake County right now. We have workers, we have a fairly urban area in the northeastern part of Lake County, in the Waukegan area, in the northeast there. And we have workers that work, they don't work 9 to 5. And they can get to work, but they can't get home when they get off late at night at 9 or 10 or at midnight. There's no bus rides to get them home. We don't have platforms or shelters for people, simple things like that. So I think there's a huge equity issue here. We also have a connection issue, and I'll give you one example. College of Lake County, our community college, is a de facto transportation hub in the county, because almost every bus line, I think maybe everyone, ends up at the College of Lake County, right? So I live in a community near two metro train stations. The Milwaukee North Line and the North Central Line both stop here. That's why the neighborhood's called Prairie Crossing, because there's the crossing of the two metro lines. So we have a unique opportunity there. But the bus stop to connect with the train stations is about a half a mile up a road with no path. And then when you get there, you're on State Highway Route 45 with no platform, no shelter. And in the snowy weather, I've actually seen people, there's no shoulder on the road even for people to stand on. They're literally standing in a lane of traffic with people going by 50 miles an hour. And so we went to our county and we said, why can't you connect these two modes of transportation? It's just an obvious place to do it, where you have two train lines and then you have a bus stop going to the community college. And they said to us, so we were working on trying to get a path put in there, and they said, hey, I have a better idea. Why don't we just get PACE, the bus service, to stop at the train stations? So why aren't the buses making a stop at these train stations? I mean, that's the first question we have to ask. So equity and interconnectivity of our transit system is a big priority for us. And getting our elected officials, I would wager a guess, if I had to guess, of our county board members, that there's probably not more than one or two that have ever been on our bus system in the county. I'm just guessing. I'll survey them and I'll find out for you.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question about equity and inclusion, but you seem to have touched upon it. Were there any other points that you might want to raise around that issue?
Well, with the Route 53 corridor, Mundelein High School is, I believe, I could be wrong about this, but I believe it is a majority minority high school. And I do think there's an equity issue there as well. And we've said at the time when the 12-way was doing this, so what is your plan with those school students? School students are so at risk with clean air because their lungs are less developed. And you're going to have a massive highway with diesel trucks going right by this high school and by this elementary school. And what are you going to pay to move the school? Because who's going to, or how are you going to protect these children? Or can they never go outside and play on the athletic fields? And how does that work, right? So it's not just a racial equity issue there. It's an issue with children, I think, as well.
Well, yes, we tend to talk a lot about our concern for youth, but sometimes don't do a lot of action. So I'll segue to another question. How do you engage the youth of Lake County?
I have an advantage for the time being. I have a 17-year-old, so My daughter is our diversity and youth coordinator. So she does a great job of bringing friends in. She's involved with her, her local Key Club and her FBLA. And so she gets her friends and her fellow students engaged, and National Honor Society hours. We work on a campaign called World Cleanup Day every September where people pick up trash. So we engage with the College of Lake County on that. And so, I mean, we do what we can. I do think, I teach at the community college as well. I teach music, oddly enough. That's where my background before I started doing this work. And I do want to engage more with the students there. I've struggled with it because I don't want it to be inappropriate, and by that I mean where they feel like they have to join and volunteer because I'm their teacher. So I've decided to wait till I hand in their final grades and then ask. So I'm still trying to thread that needle, but there's so many amazing young people that I work with all the time, and I'd like to engage with them even more. And they do care. They care. It's kind of funny when we have events. I joke that we have aging hippies and we have youth together that are both activists and committed and engaged. I think the millennials are harder to engage with, honestly. They're all busy. They have children. So when we had that open space celebration, we had face painters there and all kinds of bouncy house and all kinds of stuff so people could bring their children with them. So we can also engage with that kind of middle generation of people that are super busy. I don't know what you guys find, but I think that's true of the Sierra Club too. I think I once saw that the median age of the Sierra Club member was 65. Right, so that might have changed, over the last few years. That I saw that probably 4 or 5 years ago, but I think that's true. I think we all have a challenge to engage with our next generations.
Great. Mike asks a question: are buses still going to CC, which I assume means the community college, while closed? And
Oh, yes.
okay, and CLC also may be indirectly getting funds for being the hub of buses. I'm not sure what CLC refers to.
College of Lake County. Yeah,
Oh,
I don't think they get any funds. I don't know that though for a fact. They do. There are still buses running. I'm not there very often because my classes are online now, so I don't go there often. But when I do go there, I do see buses still stopping. So I don't know if they run as frequently. And Lake County also has a paratransit system. And I believe I heard one of the members who was on the board, which is kind of folded now. The system still works, but the group of people that were advocating and running it kind of don't meet anymore. But they told me that the majority of their ridership was people going to work too. And so I think that's another system, and we need a better system. So in Lake County, you can only go within your county. So like, for instance, I had an elderly dad that lived with us, and he needed dialysis, but his dialysis was in a different county. So he couldn't cross county lines by taking paratransit. So I had to take off work to take him there. And so that's a bit of an issue too. I think we need to work on a paratransit system that can go at least countywide. I mean township. He couldn't cross township lines. It's operated within each township right now, and you can't
so in
cross
other words, you couldn't connect to, if you're a paratransit user, you couldn't connect to another community in Lake County.
Yeah, right. And so that's a problem. There are a lot of issues like that and the last mile kind of issues. And how do we have these super urban area, not super, but we have fairly urban areas, and then we have really remote rural areas. I think probably a lot of collar counties have these situations. And how do we create a transit plan that works for everyone?
Great. Okay. I had a question that I improvised. What sort of opposition have you run into, and what sort of arguments have you found diffuse those whatever opposition you've run into?
Regarding transportation or just in general?
In general.
We're very lucky in Lake County. I've seen some of the polling. I think 95% of the people in Lake County support clean water, which is really something because we're almost a split county between political parties. But even people that you might want to say are on the right are active sportsmen and avid sportsmen. We have a beautiful county. So we're very lucky that way. The opposition that we've had is sort of the traditional, in the case of the tollway, it was land speculators and developers and road builders. And unions, oddly enough. We don't like to be on the opposite side with them, but in that case, we were. So we have to find ways where they can still have employment, right? The land speculators are on their own. I mean, that's the risk you take when you speculate on land, right? But it was some pretty powerful interests. It wasn't. I won't say it was an easy fight, right? But I firmly believe that the only way, and I think I was taught this, I did the Midwest Academy training for organizers, which I highly recommend, midwestacademy.org, I think they are. And they say the only thing to defeat organized money is organized people. And that is so true. And I believe with enough commitment of and collective action by organized people, you can defeat any kind of organized money. I believe that.
Great. Sounds good. We're so pleased to have you and this dialogue today, Maggie. And I think that Barb, I was trying to switch up to pass the baton to Maggie. Not as smooth as those people on TV, that's for sure. But thank you, Barb, and I'll pass it on to Maggie.
All right. Well, thank you so much. You had so much great advice to offer to advocates, and it's like clear that you really care about this work and you've done so much work, and I hope we can spread the word about what you're doing so more people can get involved and attend your advocacy trainings, because I feel like you've got a wealth of wisdom.
Thank you.
So I feel like I want to go to those trainings.
Yeah, and any bicycle advocates you have, or walking advocates that you have, please have them reach out to us, because we would love to work together with them.
Yeah, someone just sent me a message about the Lake County Bike Club, so we should try to connect you with them, and Ride Illinois too, and others. So yeah, and thank you, Robert, for all the great questions, and for everyone who joined today. So thank you so much, Barbara.
And thank you for doing this series. It's such a great series, and I'm learning a lot, and thank you for offering it to people in this way too, where we can actually communicate with people.
Yeah, right. All right, well, thanks all, and we'll see you soon at another session.
Yes, thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.